Kia ora e tātou mā huakina te ao mai ki mātou, hara mai tāne te wānanga, ko tahu holasa hau, nau mai hoki mai ki ana the Whāriki.
Tēnā rā koutou katoa, ko te atākura Charlene Pewhairangi taku ingoa, and we're joined today by beautiful Manuhiri. Tēnā rā koe, piri mai rā ki tēnei tā tātou kaupapa. Ko ai koe, no hea hoki koe.
Kia ora, ko Kyrin tuku ingoa, he uri tēnei no tainui me Ngāti Kōriki kahukura, no Tamaki Makaurau ahau, and I'm a qualified counsellor.
Kia ora. Now, he kaupapa, I think it's like a talked about often topic, this thing, toxic relationships, but I think to get a crux of the idea, what is a toxic relationship?
That's a great question, and I've been thinking about it. I think we know when we're in one because it doesn't feel good. So like that mohiotanga is like, oh, this is gross, and we don't feel good in the relationship. But also we know that lots of things maybe in our lives aren't going great. And so we're looking externally and internally at what's happening and how we feel. What I'll often talk about is there's no right way to do a relationship, but there's definitely wrong ways to do a relationship. And that's where we find ourselves in toxic situations because maybe the balance is out, or we're young, we don't know, we've been taught different behaviours, we've been role modelled things that maybe aren't healthy. Yeah.
And what are those unhealthy things? How do we identify that this is wrong?
Yeah, I think we have this kind of, most of us will know what is wrong, like we're thinking about physical, sexual, emotional, mental violence, financial, and I think more and more we're seeing technology as a way to be violent towards people. It's the space that sits under that where, you know, those things don't exist and those things are illegal. So we've got like a range of behaviours that are still legal. So they're like, you know, love bombing someone or intimidating someone, you know, using someone for your personal gain, which extends over what we might think relationship is. You know, I think we can see in whānau maybe it wasn't great in childhood and we're still holding on to these patterns of behaviour into our adulthood, and we're, you know, returning to unsafe situations, but we have like a loyalty and a bond and we love our whānau, and so we find ourselves in maybe precarious situations. You know, it's the way we talk to each other and treat each other and care for each other that potentially misaligns, and then we're in a not great situation.
You talked about, I just realised, like, toxic relationships, you can even be brought up in them, in your own whānau.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that it's with it could be a toxic relationship with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, if we're thinking about getting relationships right, the relationship that we have with ourselves is the most important. But if you haven't been role modelled that as a young person, like, how would you know? And now we have this amazing access to information where we can learn how to have positive relationships. But if it's really entrenched and if it's intergenerational, and if we look at Ngā Atua and some of those toxic relationships, it's like, wow, it's easy to kind of draw a conclusion as to why we got here and how that happened.
There's, you know, we've got so many different relationships in our lives, and some of them we have the ability to remove ourselves from. But we've also got, you know, toxic relationship with, you know, some people that we just, you know, can't separate from, you know, whether that be your mātua, your siblings, your tamariki. How do we deal with those toxic relationships?
It's really hard. It's really, really hard. We can set boundaries, and when we talk about boundaries, it's actually You know, we're not saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, well, what am I going to do if this behaviour occurs? Sometimes we can't do that. That's, you know, we have these relationships with people that are, you know, that are just there, they exist. And for me, it's about how do you care for yourself before and how do you care for yourself after, knowing that you're going to enter into a space that is potentially harmful for you at lots of different levels. What I see is people being like, oh, you know, my mother is really abusive and she always was and she speaks to me in this awful way. I can't advocate that you don't speak to your mother again. Yeah, it's not, you know, that's not the solution here.
Yeah.
And by changing our own behaviour and being like, okay, I'm going to look after myself and actually when I'm around this person, I'm going to speak really kindly or I'm going to try and do as much damage control. We are also hopefully teaching the other person how we want to be treated. But, you know, I think a large part of that is pre and after care of self.
How do we identify that we're a toxic person? Like, sometimes we don't like to tell people how they make us feel because we don't want to hurt them.
Yeah.
What are some ways in which we can identify that actually that's toxic and that doesn't actually make that person feel nice without them telling you?
Yeah, that's really hard as well. It's hard because we are very good at being self-reflective and self-aware, but it is just self, like we're just relying on self. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever kind of played out a conversation in your head with some other person. The reality is it's just you having that conversation. We need good people in our lives. So even if we can't speak directly to that person, we need other people that we can be like, oh, hey, what do you think about this? Or can I get your honest opinion about this? And that might be friends, whānau, a professional. I was listening to one of your other podcasts and you spoke about hene ko-orohia and Tane's relationship. And it's like, we need wise counsel from other people. We need to be able to, someone else needs to be able to call us, essentially, on our behaviour.
Hine ko-orohia is a beautiful atua to bring up. Mo tātou kore moho ana ki a hine ko-orohia, ko ia te atua reflection, eh? That's how we kind of describe her, and she carries the wai tapu of the atua and ko ngā roi mata tērā. And when they would get through on the journeys, the tāne te wānanga, she'd get that, you know, every rangi they ascend through, at the start of a rangi, they tohita that rangi. We're not leaving this rangi till we get through this rangi. At the end of the rangi, they pure the rangi. But at the end of the rangi, whai mua I te pure, you have to sit there and reflect on what's happened in that rangi. Eh? And that's not just on what's gone right, what's gone wrong. What can we do better in the next rangi? And tērā kupu hoki, ka-orohia he kupu mo te sharpen. They sharpen the tools, and that's the tool you're sharpening with reflection. And it was funny that you spoke about the role modelling and time when you feel bad in a relationship. That was something I wanted to bring up. It was the time, role models. I come from a world where my parents are the most loving parents ever. Never showing us disunited front. They've always come as a team. So that's my example. Me, myself, growing up, was a fucking little toxic cunt.
Get it, bro.
So
it's like, honesty.
Yeah, it's crazy that like I come from marriage and I come from aroha and I come from full bellies. So I have like no excuse of why I turned toxic kind of thing. Ego is a big part of it. With your friends, I wanted to be the coolest, skaxest, and I think I had a lot of insecurity in myself where I needed this hole filled with being wanted. I think I looked at myself as unworthy, so that I needed that validation from someone else. And then once I had got it from that someone, for instance, my first love, this lady, top lady, you know. Like, now that I look back at it, I've gone back to her and really apologized, because we had like a good 7 years of, we take turns at playing up on each other, then we'll come back together, then we'll split apart again, then I'll go with another person, you go with another person, then we come back together, split up. It was the cycle we put each other in of, like, we're each other's person through it all anyway, and we always somehow make it back through all this hard shit, and they seem like tohu to yourself, like, this person we're supposed to be together. Hākua ngā hekenga me ngā iwi ngā piki. I'm now married to a completely different person. But those akoranga, it was really hard for me, because I think it turned into payback at some point, where she had done that to me. So then I felt like the utu in me, I wanted to go do it to her. And then I used that as an excuse. Well, she's done it before. Now I'll play up again, and I'll play up again, and I'll play up again. I'm away from her. So then, and then you get in this place of, I'm an actual cheater. And you become okay with it. Because the other person sometimes does it, or the other person lets you away with it. The cycle, I don't know how or what it was for me. I think for me it was my wife, obviously. She changed me, but some of our kids don't get this anahera just pop up in their life and make them wake up, you know?
I think part of it, or what I'm hearing from your experience, is also down to age. You know, becoming an adult is really, really hard, especially in the times that we live in now. We fundamentally want to be seen and heard, and we will seek that out as best we can and as best we know how. And I think as well, we can't discount that this kind of back and forward, push and pull, you know, the hormones are just going wild for it. It loves it, you know, that kind of like, oh yeah, I'm getting my dopamine hit, I'm getting this oxytocin, I feel terrible, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna, you know, everything's kind of sparking off for us. But what I heard you say is, I don't do that anymore. Actually, I learned from it, and now in a beautiful partnership, I hope. And so you had this experience where you now can maybe acknowledge it, and I'm sure in it, it was really hard to acknowledge it. But that's what we want. We want the learning to take into, you know, our real adulthood. Being young is the time to make the mistakes. And if you're going to be toxic at any time, do it when you're young. There's kind of less repercussions then. If you're still doing this as you age and get older, you know, talk to somebody else. Maybe your friends aren't the one. Your partner's not the one. But being young is a great time to do that and figure it out. As long as we're not, you know, harming people in a way that's, you know, I think, not to dismiss your experience, but you kind of were both in it, you were both in the push and pull, and you're both learning from that experience. Like, how do I want to be treated? Do I like this behaviour? A reflection that I will offer to people is, do you like being treated this way? And if you're treating somebody a certain way and then they turned around and did that to you, would you be okay? And maybe in that moment, you actually were okay because it was just bi-directional.
What you fall into. The hard thing with those type of toxic relationships is that love is at the core. And you know you're hurting the other person, and you still convince yourself that you love them through it. That's not real love. That's what it comes down to.
And that's, you know, it takes a really high level of self-reflection to unpack or differentiate between real love and pseudo-love. And like, that push and pull is very addictive to us. And so, we think it's love. And again, it's hard when you're young to have those
It's hard to call them on it too. I'm going through it at the moment now. I'm living it again through my little brother. He's like putting me through this trauma at the moment. Because he's doing everything I did. And I tell him, like, bro, I'm telling you, this shit ain't how you want to live. And they won't hear you. Even though you know.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm telling you, I did this, bro. I know what you're doing, and I know it's not what's good for you.
And
he tells me, bro, shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a really important point to bring up too, because I think, is it sometimes being young, you know, there's a saying, kei tamariki ana mahia, is where do we let our kids go through it to experience it, then learn from it, you know, because I'm the same. I'm like, don't do that, been there, done that. It's never a good ending. But if I didn't go through it myself, I wouldn't know what's tika and what's here. So how do we ensure that, okay, let kids be kids, let them experience what they need to experience, but learn from it?
Yeah. I think the best way that they can learn from it is to know that you'll be there to support them, whatever happens. If it's bad, that you'll still show up. If it works out, you'll still show up. Because it is, we don't know until we know.
That's good advice. I've been going to threats at the moment.
Always be there.
I've been resulting back to it.
You know, I've been thinking about this korero, and it's, you know, when we're telling someone something, it's our mātauranga, right? We're trying to impart their knowledge. But it's the maramatanga that is the key, that kind of like aha moment will be the one that gets them, and we can't give that to people.
Right.
We can give them our mātauranga, but
you can't give them your maramatanga. Beautiful. That's a winner.
Yeah.
That's a winner. Clip that, someone. Yeah.
Is it possible to, you know, start in a beautiful, healthy relationship, go through a toxic period, but come out healthy as well? You know, because we often say, you need to leave, get out, it's toxic. But I've been with my tāne, you know, going on 12 plus years now. We had tamariki very young, which was a very hard time in our relationships. It was not on the cards, but we wouldn't change it for the world now. Is there a possibility of working through toxic relationships?
Absolutely. What I say is, most of the time your relationship should be good. Sometimes it's just okay and average, and for a very small amount of time, it's bad.
I like that.
You know, I mean, if it's most of the time that it's bad, that's definitely toxic. Yeah. But if you can think, oh yeah, most of the time this is good, and most of the time I'm okay, we can work through it. We can work through anything, you know, we're incredible, and we can do really hard things because we really care about somebody and we really care about ourselves.
That's a good point to bring up, like leaving doesn't have to be the first port of call. Hey, there's he rāhau a pōpō. Yeah. But then it's like sometimes I know that part of there's another day tomorrow, but I've also used that as a manipulative tactic.
Yeah.
Like where it's like, babe, we'll just wake up tomorrow and see how we feel tomorrow. Let's not make this decision now because I didn't want to get broken up with, you know. And then you use it for the next day, and then you push it away again, and then you push that down, and that problem gets forgotten about, swept away, and then it pops up and rears its head even worse than the last time.
Yeah.
And I guess what you're saying is just actually deal with the thing at hand, whatever the cope-up is.
And it really is about finding those other people in your life that you can speak to, and that might be friends, that might be whānau, it might be a therapist, it might be the 1737. At some point you have to be honest about it with yourself, and you have to be honest with somebody else, because it takes a really high level of self-reflection and self-awareness to kind of unpack these things alone. And we don't have time for that, you know, I don't have time for that. Life is busy and noisy. And so our other people should hopefully reflect it back to us. And, you know, it's also about connecting into the body, like, how do I feel? How do you feel? What is going on for us? This, you know. It
clear,
doesn't feel
open
good.
communication, eh?
Yeah.
Like it takes that, you have to actually say what's feeling wrong to your partner or with whoever you're in the relationship with. One of our punishments in our whānau is if you fuck up, like on a bad thing, you know, something, whatever you've done, you have to go tell grandma and papa. They're like our gods in our whānau, and we are so scared to go get that judgment. And I remember I had played up on my partner at the time, and my mum, she had gone to my mum, and my mum made me go to my grandma and papa and explain, and she said, tell them who you are. Yeah, that's what it was. And I said there, and I pakaru. I pakaru, I tangi, I whakama, I oku tani whakakitea, e te whānau. And I was always scared of being a disappointment to our whānau because of the aroha we come from and the examples they've set, and that's not how we do it. That's not how you treat wahine in our whānau. In our whānau, like all the breadwinners are women. My mum's the deputy of military education, the other one's CEO, our grandma's the big boss of they're all the big bosses, and our dads are all the tonotonos, pretty much. And that's how we've been raised to treat our wahine, and I wasn't doing it. I wasn't fulfilling my role, I guess. And I remember going to my papa and grandma and telling them that, and I said, this is who I am. And they said, that's not who you are. You just did that day. Was what they asked.
Yeah, that's that beautiful thing of they were there, even in your worst moment. And that's what we need. When we think we're being toxic or we're in a toxic relationship, we need somebody on our side who's like, I will love you through this. Stop.
Stop right there.
But I will love
stop.
you through this. Or I will care for you through this, and I will listen to you. And I think that's really hard in friendships and other relationships because people, you know, are like, oh, well, not my drama, or we've talked about it too much. But we just need one person who's on our team.
Better if it could be yourself, eh? If you can get to the point where you're in your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, that is that relationship with self. If you have a really good relationship with yourself, if this is a kind place for you to live, you have less of a chance of ending up in a toxic relationship, whether that be with your whānau, an intimate partner, a friendship, in your work. Like, this is the most important relationship.
That's beautiful if you're kind to yourself, eh? And you need to be upstairs, eh? There's too much bad shit out in the world that you're pretty much safe place.
We live here 24/7. I'm in it 24/7 with myself. And if it's a good relationship most of the time, it's a much easier place to live in.
Today's world is so different to what it was like, you know, when we were growing up. I can't help but think of our tamariki and the impact that social media has on their world. What are some things that we can do as, you know, as parents to safeguard our tamariki from that, you know, because social media is not real life most of the time. How do we help them shut out the noise and ensure that they are, you know, only reflecting on themselves, because they rely on social media?
I think it's finding the people that they're aspiring to or they're inspired by and making sure that those are good people. And steering them away from the kind of really toxic stuff that comes up on social media. And so it's about having those really honest conversations. Social media is such a huge part of our world now, and it's only going to get bigger. And so it's about teaching young people and anyone really about what is your relationship with social media, actually. Like, Is that a toxic relationship?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you spending hours upon hours scrolling?
That's the thing. It's hard to judge with people whether you're in a toxic relationship. Engari mo ngā wā, he ine.
Yeah.
Ki reire, you
Yeah.
got those, at the end of the week, your screen mirror time. How long have you been
How
on
many
there?
hours you on there? Yeah.
And honestly, I was on there 1 week for like 10 hours a day, and it was because I was working, Spotify, blah, blah, blah. But it freaked me out to the point of like, 10 hours, bro. I was only awake 10 hours that day. Like,
Crazy.
And it like made me sick. But that's like a good gate. It was nice to have that reminder because now back to 2 hours a week, hour and a half a day, you know, of what I go on my phone for normally. And it's pretty much just for mahi because I found I got into a really toxic relationship as our mahi really is dictated by what the trends are going on around in the world. So you kind of have to keep up with it. But I went away. That was another part of, I went away for hiding last year where I stayed in my truck and took my boat and just fished and dived the coast of New Zealand. And I just lived out of my truck. And one of my favorite things about that trip was that I built a good relationship with my anxieties online. It turned to just creating for fun. And I stopped watching everything else and I started to make original auaha content.
Amazing.
You know, and that's like you're getting clouded by all this outside perspective noise and that you're getting stuck on it and then you're not actually creating yourself because you're too busy watching everything else being created around you. How do we have that in there with relationships in our life? How do we have that gauge of being able to know that, I've spent 10 hours with this one this week. I need to dial back to hour and a half here.
Yeah. And I think too, because we watch social media, you know, we're on it all the time. You know, you spoke how important it is to have, you know, a good relationship with yourself. But, you know, I have a 9-year-old that watches TikTok and is like, Mum, I want this makeup and I want that kākahu. And so it starts from a very young age. Like, I didn't have that at 9, you know. It's a whole different world. So how do we ensure that we are letting our 9-year-olds be 9-year-olds, but in a way that is directing them on a path that isn't so heavily influenced by, I don't want to say the wrong people, but, you know, things that they don't need in their lives right now. Like, be a 9-year-old, go outside, climb a tree.
And I think it's a reminder for all of us to do those things, you know, encourage, because I have to encourage myself, right, to go outside and do something. Encouraging our young people as a collective, you know, it's hard to do it alone. Like, oh yeah, you're 9 and you're young, go outside. It's like, no, we need other people to do that with. We need to be in a relationship. Figure out how we have fun. What does that look like? What makes me feel good? You know, even you can do that from a really young age. What makes me feel good? There isn't this pseudo I feel good. It's like, yeah, you know, I love swimming. I love being outside. I love cooking. I love reading. Do more of those things. The reality is we're not going to escape social media. And so how do we integrate more of the like good
positive
stuff
things,
into the everyday? It's hard when we're all busy and everything takes so much time and the traffic is terrible. But it's, you know, that role modelling of behaviour as well.
It's hard to be kind to yourself when everything feels like it's against you.
Absolutely.
And you tell yourself everything's against you. Like, when you're a manipulative person and you become manipulative through relationships, you start to manipulate yourself into believing things that aren't necessarily true about yourself, even positive things, like, I am all good. I am doing well.
And that's a good point to think about, what are all of my relationships like? Because if it's one toxic relationship, it actually might be okay. You might be, you know, it's like, oh, I'm just figuring it out. If you notice oh, actually, my friends, I'm in a real push and pull with my friends. Oh, I hate my boss. Oh, I'm always yelling at people in my car. And it's like, that's a great assessment of where you truly are at. Or if you see behaviours...
So then you're the problem.
Yeah, it is that. Like,
you're the common denominator.
different people keep saying, you know, after 2 months of spending time with you, like, I got to go. Well, what's happening for you in 2 months? Why does this behaviour keep happening? Am I the toxic one? And how am I going to figure that out? Do I want to figure that out?
I don't know what it was that pushed me to becoming like that. Or I think it was greed at the core of it, you know, wanting more than what you should take.
Yeah.
It's cool that you can identify what it is, because I'm assuming for a lot of people it can be different things. Like for some people it's alcohol that leads them to do toxic things. For some it might be, you know, I don't know, drugs. There's so many different things. But if you can identify what it is, like you just said, it was, what was at the core of why I was being so toxic. That's huge to be able to find what it is.
Our ego and, you know, what we're consuming will also drive that, right? Like, oh, yeah, that person's got that and I want it too. And they act like this, so I'm going to act like that too.
That was another thing for me. I think it was I couldn't be alone. Needed attention, like wanted I grew up in like whare with all my cousins as my siblings.
Yeah.
So I always had best friends. Like, and to wake my day up, we're going to watch Rugrats or, you know, Teletubbies. That's how we start our day. And then we're outside and we're fishing and we're running to the bush. This was my life, you know. And then at school even, I remember every weekend, because we were whānau with enough rawa to provide for a lot of whānau, my parents always made sure to take whānau home with us on the weekend and would have it. I didn't realise that's what it was at the time, you know, where they'd take tamariki to make sure that they're fed and get to their rugby games on the weekend. So I always had like 3-4 bros over at our house in the weekend. So that was my life. Then it's like weekend time, we're on, boys, you know. And then you get to 16 and then you get a missus. And then you love having a friend there all the time, and then you need this companionship.
It's hard to be alone. It's really hard. And it's hard when you're young. And, you know, I think that's a great example of I was never alone. And so it's so unfamiliar to me to be alone that it's uncomfortable. I'm so uncomfortable that I would rather have toxicity than being alone. Like that alternative.
You're choosing that alternative.
Yeah, is far better than me having to sit by myself. Why would I do that? When I can sit with someone else.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been in a state where I've had so many people around me but still felt alone too.
Oh, yeah.
So there's like a balance between, like, you can literally be by yourself and feel alone, but there's also that feeling of you can be with all your whānau, all your friends, your partner, your tamariki, but still feel alone. So it's kind of like, sometimes you just can't win.
The human experience is
wild.
It's so hard. We're always learning. There is no right way. There's definitely the wrong way.
There's definitely the wrong way.
There's no right way to do this.
Wānanga pai, tēnā koe mō mātauranga that you gave us. I loved that. There's not a wrong, or there is a wrong way. There's not a right way, but also you can't share your māramatanga. You can only share your mātauranga.
Mihi ana ki a koe, tēnā koe I tēnei wānanga I o mātauranga. And ko te tūmanako ko kitea he māramatanga e hoa mā, mihi ana ki a koutou, piri mai ki tēnei hōtaka o Under the Whāriki.
See you again. Love yous. All.